Hey, how about it, race fans? Richard Allen of InsideDirtRacing.com and InsideCircleTrack.com coming at you with another one of my richest ramblings. And the topic of today is about the High Limit Sprint Car Series race that took place on Tuesday night at the Lernerville Speedway. What an amazing atmosphere that was. Anybody who watched it, Flow Racing covered it live, or of course there are a lot of people who were there for that matter to watch it in person. But for anybody who witnessed that event, wow, what a charged up atmosphere it was. The grandstand was absolutely packed. Big purse on the line, $50,000 to win. David Gravel ultimately wound up getting that win there, kind of having to outduel Kyle Larson, who almost flipped over when he got kind of caught up on the berm there, or on the cushion, I should say. Brad Sweet had a little issue, which also allowed Gravel to get by him. So it's quite a race, but more importantly, it's an unbelievable atmosphere with so many people there. Everybody was excited to be there. Everybody was excited to watch the race. Everybody was excited to see what was going on. And, a lot of that has to be attributed to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Jr. really promoted that race all throughout the week, or all throughout the days leading up to it, because it was his first major sprint car race that he'd ever seen in person. He went there. They did one of his Dale Jr. downloads live right there in front of the stands, right in front of the grandstands, with him and his co-host Mike Davis on there. Kyle Larson joined in. Brad Sweet joined in. Of course, the High Limit Sprint Car Series is co-owned and co-founded by Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson, who are brothers-in-law for that matter. So there's a family relationship there. But it was just an amazing thing to see. It was fun to watch. It was fun to see all the people who were taking part in it. There was one of the competitors, I want to say it was Brian Brown, I believe that's who it was, who talked about how during one of his interviews that there are a lot of races, but there's only a few events. And that's a really good distinction to make, because this was most definitely an event. An event comes with more to it than just, hey, we're going to have a race and we're going to pay a purse, and we'll get out there and run a certain number of laps and that'll be it. But then an event comes with that charged atmosphere, with people excited to be there. People, the promoters who are putting it on are excited to be putting it on, and that's exactly what you had last night. Kyle Larson, Brad Sweet really worked hard to make sure that thing would succeed. Flow Racing did a great job presenting it, so they had full-on coverage of it. And then, like I said, Dale Jr. was there, which brought in a lot of fans, which brings up to me a point that I've always wondered about. I know that there's a contention between dirt racing fans and NASCAR, which I've never really quite understood, but because I watch both of them and I don't feel like I'm scarred either way. But, to each his own. If you want to like NASCAR, like it, and if you don't. But no matter how much of a supporter of dirt racing that you are, you cannot deny what it does for dirt racing when somebody from NASCAR shows up. I mean, I've been in many pit areas in which Kyle Larson has been, and the number of fans that throng to him to get autographs, to get selfies with him, and all that, far outnumbers anybody else. I was at Volunteer Speedway in Bulls Gap, Tennessee, earlier this year when Kyle Busch was up there. And again, a huge crowd was there. I remember a couple of years ago when Kyle Busch drove kind of a team car to Jonathan Davenport up at Bristol Motor Speedway when they very first covered it in dirt. And during his press conference after one of the races, Davenport pointed out, he said, I thought I was popular, but there's nothing compared to Kyle Busch and how many fans that there were around him. So, I've never quite understood the resistance of having NASCAR be a part of dirt racing. And we've seen, and I think it's the Kyle Larson effect. I think that Larson, both on the late model side and the sprint car side, has drawn a lot of people to the sport. There were no doubt, I wish we could find out a number. There were no doubt a lot of people who were there at Lernerville last night simply because Dale Earnhardt Jr. was there. Even though, knowing Dale Earnhardt Jr. wasn't going to race, he was just going to be there to observe, to have a good time, to do his Dale Jr. download, and, just enjoy being part of the show. But there were still a lot of people there only for that reason. They'd probably never been to a sprint car race, or for that matter, maybe even never been to a dirt track before, but they wanted to be in the same presence with Dale Jr. How can that hurt dirt racing? There's no way it does, because they might get there and say, hey, this is a pretty good show. I might want to go watch one sometime, whether Dale Jr. is there or not, or whether Kyle Larson's there or not, or Kyle Busch, or whoever it might happen to be. So it always has, as far as I can tell, it always has a positive impact whenever some NASCAR personality, whether it be a racer or something else, be it a dirt track, to help draw in fans. But then more than that, like I said earlier, how the distinction between having a race and having an event, and having an event requires a lot of work. Not saying that putting on any race doesn't require work, because of course it does. I've only had a small taste of what it's like to work at a racetrack. My sons and I cleaned up the trash at Smoky Mountain Speedway once after a Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series race, and I can tell you right now, that was not easy. There was a lot of work to it, but if you're gonna put on an event, you've got to do whatever it takes that's going to get the fans' attention. So you've got to, have things besides just, hey, we're having a race and here's the amount we're paying to win. Everybody come on. Because a lot of times they won't. You haven't done anything to encourage them. And there's so many options out there, racing-wise. There's so many races now that pay 25, 30, 40, 50,000 to win, that, hey, if I miss this one, there's another one couple hours away that I can go see some other time. So you've got to make people want to be there, and with the emphasis that Brad Sweet and Kyle Larson, and then later Dale Earnhardt Jr. put on that high limit race at Lernerville, there was a reason people wanted to be there. So there's lessons to be learned by everybody. And like I said, I'm not saying that the promoters that don't work, or not everybody has the good fortune of Dale Earnhardt Jr. just showing up at your racetrack and letting everybody know a week ahead of time that he's going to be there. But still, nonetheless, there are always things that can be done to turn a race into an event, and they most certainly did that on Tuesday night at Lernerville with that show that they put on there. But anyway, that's just kind of my thoughts there on what transpired. I was glad to get to see it, and it was, like I said, it was more than just a race. Everybody was having fun, everybody was having a great time, and everybody enjoyed being there, wanted to be there, and was excited to be there. And that's not always true. That whether it be at a race or a football game or anything, it's not always true. So they made it true. So good job by the High Limit Sprint Car Series, by Flo, by everybody involved. But until then, I'll see you next time at the track.